Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the warm weather we are currently experiencing, it may come as a surprise to many Albertans that In From the Cold is seeing a spike in users that is leaving them at or near capacity. Landlords aren't allowed to evict tenants during dangerous winter months, and rightly so. But this leads to a surge in the number of evictions as the weather begins to improve. To the Premier, what is your government doing to make sure organizations like In From the Cold have the resources to deal with the increased user numbers?
The Honourable Minister of Community and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Member, for the question. We have been working with our partners in that area, and we have provided stable and predictable funding to make sure that they can provide the services to Albertans who rely on these services. And if we were to take advice from that side, the proposed cuts each and every day, that would have made the situation worse. We have increased funding in all our 4 budgets to make sure Albertans get the services they need.
Your supplemental.
Affordable housing and programs like In From the Cold are vital parts of dealing with homelessness and housing insecurity. But we need to be more proactive about keeping people housed to begin with. We can save the system money if we focus on keeping people housed instead of rehousing them. And that stability has associated benefits to the health and wellness of families who are no longer being evicted. To the Premier, we need to support organizations like In From the Cold, but we also need an alternative, proactive solution to keep people in their homes. Where is your government on this issue?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Member, for the question. As I said, instead of cutting funding for homelessness housing, we are investing almost $170 million in homelessness file. We have invested $5.2 million in support for 200 new permanent supportive housing. And we also are investing $1.2 billion to make sure that affordable housing is available. There is permanent solution available for Albertans who rely on these supports.
The problem that is shared by people at risk of losing their housing, as well as the nonprofits that assist them, is the lack of cash on hand. Both groups are usually very tight on budgets, and small increases in costs can have dire consequences. This means that a carbon tax actually has a higher impact on these families and nonprofits who have to pay increased costs every day, but then have to wait months for rebates. And you can understand that those months feel like a very long time when you're struggling to make ends meet. To the Premier, will you show some understanding and some compassion and exempt nonprofits and low-income Albertans from the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of Community and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that when Climate Leadership Plan was brought forward, we considered those, and that's why 2/3 of Albertans are getting those rebates. So they are not burdened with that. And as I said before, that the reason we are facing these challenges is that that side over there, Member was part of that, for 40 years they ignored these, and those social deficits were offloaded onto Albertans. Now we are making those investments. We are investing $1.2 billion to make sure that housing is available for Albertans who need them.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.